Hi guys, George with Troglodyne here. Sort of going to do a retrospective over how quarter two of this year has gone, and it's generally ending late March, which that's kind of what right now is. So let's just sort of get right into it. I've been trying to do what a lot of people call in the business stacking the bricks, which is basically you have to build yourself a big portfolio of like, look at me, here's how awesome I am. So you need to hire me as like a guy to do contracts, whatever it is. And the point is that you need to leverage your existing skill set if you're going to be able to actually do that and get yourself constant wins over time and just show that you can get those constant wins over time. And for most developers, that's going to be something like their open source portfolio of stuff that they can show that this is the kind of value I deliver. Anyways, so I think that I'm somewhat lacking in that department in that I need a lot better pages for a lot of my open source projects like TCMS. Let's go here. So we've got a old TCMS page here that talks about actually TCMS2 even before it was Perl. I haven't even migrated this to uh, the new version of the code yet. So that's one thing that I obviously need to do. But I've got other projects that are actually active and in the pipe. Right now, I've been working with a couple of people to actually start using the Playwright module for Perl, for example. And there's a lot of questions they have about actually using it. So I really need to do a lot better effort on the sort of documentation and evangelization so that it's more accessible to people. And that's one of the core problems in open source is you've written a cool tool, but that doesn't mean anybody's going to use it and all that sort of stuff. You got to start to make it pretty obvious how that works. And by doing that stuff, you're actually going to get people coming through to your site so that you can actually get that sort of search authority, all that yada yada. I need to start writing some blog posts or doing some more videos about things you can actually do with this project. So, but in the moment, I've got other goals, which is to start releasing more of these projects, which, like I said, it's just stacking the bricks. So the the and that anyways that was the big takeaway I had from my sort of retrospective on how this last quarter has gone and sort of where I needed to actually go with the company going forward. So um, I'm going to leverage my skills with regard to the products I'm going to try and come out with this year. It's going to be, as you might imagine, based on if you know me, that's going to be things like using QA techniques and so forth to actually make the development experience a lot better for software developers. I've found that a lot of times they don't even know about the sort of techniques we use to reduce the workload, and so they'll just throw hardware at a problem and waste a huge amount of money. That's this number two, this pairwise tool. That's one crack at solving that for people. There's been a lot of tools released in the past for that, but they just don't have the kind of ergonomics and workflow that developers are used to for them to actually pick it up and use it. They just say, I don't need this, right? It's just more work than they want to put up with. And it can't be streamlined into their existing stuff without a lot of monkeying around and writing a lot of code. What they want is something they can just pick up off the shelf and run with. And so that's one thing that I've built in the past is this thing called app-proof plugin Elasticsearch, which the idea was that it would give you, it would be test management for the whole development organization, not just QA. And the problem is that that's sort of way too ambitious with regard to an overarching system. It requires a lot of outside dependencies. So I'm trying to embrace the philosophy implied by the name of the company Troglodyne, which it's troglodytes. It's got to be caveman, stupid, simple to actually work. So that's where I'm going. I'm taking some of the code I wrote there, which it turns out almost all the code to actually do pairwise and all that stuff is not nearly performant enough and not nearly in fact it's incorrect in a lot of cases. So that's sort of the quality of programmers you generally get with the QA environment. It's not real high. Anyways, so and to be fair, they don't have time to devote to it. That's always been the issue with doing quality assurance testing, and probably a lot of the reason why they have the reputation they do. They've just got so much workload that can't be automated, that they never have time to automate what they can. Anyways, so the other thing that I'm going to focus on this next quarter is I want to start building some of these automated tests that I've written over the years with stuff like these acceptance tests with Selenium, all that stuff. I want to do everything I can to, if not totally automate it, make it to where it is really straightforward for me to build those tests mostly automated, like an 80% solution. And there's a technique that I've learned over the years that allows you to not have to write happy path tests and be able to detect edge cases being encountered by customers on the fly. I want to make a product out of that because I just haven't seen anybody do it. And so that's probably the product we're actually going to be coming out with sometime this year. And then aside from that, the natural pivot is going to be these, like I said, ape. It's going to be more of these ideas towards bringing test management concepts into the development organization without having to have this humongous overarching thing. What we want is something that integrates with our existing CI, because that's sort of the developer take on test management, and we'll go from there. So sort of the other bits and bobs is I've written a bunch of really neat, like, test this obscure scenario on Unix scripts over the years. I'll probably try and release some of those in the next quarter. And then other than that, it's like I said, it's more bits and bobs. It's going to be finishing up some things on TCMS that I'm going to need to actually do this sort of like document things correctly and simplify the workflow. And I'm going to do a lot of videos on, like, how do you use TCMS? Why should you use TCMS? All that sort of stuff. Do a few drive alongs with regard to some sites that I have that make heavy use of all the features, all that sort of thing. And then the other things that I need to do is get some Windows compat for some of these, like, Perl unit testing libraries, like overload file check, all that kind of stuff. And then it's just more extension for Playwright and Selenium Remote Driver. That's just going to be a continuing, separating ulcer of the things that I got to do for maintenance and so forth of these essentially backbone testing modules for Perl acceptance testing. And so that's sort of what I'm going to have on my plate for Q3. Obviously, the Playwright and all that stuff, I really need to devote more time to it, but I probably won't be able to devote the time I want to this quarter for it. I'll do what I can, and I'll try to make some videos, and I'll try to do everything I can, but I can't make a huge amount of promises with regard to the Selenium and all those efforts going forward, other than in that it integrates with the sort of automatic building of test cases idea that I'm coming forward with. So hopefully that should do the trick with regard to actually making sure I'm still responsive and dealing with all the issues in a timely manner on these things, because it'll encourage me to actually use the tools and dog food it more and more and more. So it's going to be the same with this pairwise tool. Is the idea is one of my big problems over the years has been CPAN testers failures of random nature. And so what I really need to do is I need to have a cost-effective way for me as one person to actually test all these weird scenarios, weird different environments very straightforwardly. So I'm going to try and probably build out a Docker infrastructure with bunches of different Perls, with bunches of ancient modules and all that kind of stuff, like flash frozen the day that Perl was released, all those sorts of things, so that we can essentially reproduce what CPAN testers does to break your builds, and then be able to run that entirely locally and very fast. That way, I don't even need CPAN testers, or we could just replace it with something fairly straightforward locally. That's the idea. Is those sort of testing helpful sorts of things going forward so that we can actually deal with this in the way that we need to. Anyways, so that's sort of the retrospective and where we're going this next quarter. Hope you enjoyed the video, and like and subscribe, all that stuff if you're on a platform that does that, and see you later.